Welcome to the first episode of Blurred Lines with Anthony K and J Rob. Welcome to the first episode of Blurred Lines with Anthony K and J Rob. So, first thing I want to say is to my followers that have followed me from Ball Talk with J Rob to Ball Talkers, I've completely revamped and rechanged the direction in which Ball Talk is going. And I will be doing it here with my friend, my OG, Anthony K, aka Fluent. I'm gonna call him Fluent. Anthony, I just want to say thank you for doing this project with me. For those who don't know, Anthony is very well known in the sports media space. He does multiple shows. I think most notably, if you know Chilltown from TikTok, you're definitely gonna know Anthony K because they both work together on that. You can catch me and him both on PC Gridiron, Players Choice Gridiron. We do a lot of content actually like mutually, and I will be working together. This whole platform was created or, redesigned in order to really focus on that old school versus new school way that we look at sports. Because I do think a lot of the dynamics now, you get a lot of the what's traditional versus what's now. And there's a lot of blurred lines there, no pun intended.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. Yeah, pun definitely intended. But we're trying to blur those lines and find kind of some ground. I think some things are more about understanding. I think we live in this day and age of social media where everybody's just throwing out opinions and kind of deciding where people land on things. But sometimes there's really no understanding of those things. So
yeah.
Anthony,
and I feel like,
go ahead.
If I may, I feel like we do Players Choice Gridiron. I do Players Choice occasionally as well. Very focused on what's happening on the court. Yep. A lot of time player debates. We focus a lot on that, which is great. Fluent and Chill, which is the show I do with Chilltown. Again, a lot of analysis on the court stuff. And my other show, The Fluent, is nothing to do with sports. That's I got Flat Earth Dave on next week. We're talking about flat Earth, nothing to do with sports. Yeah. And so first of all, don't thank me, thank you, man, because this could be really special, especially because we're also blurring the lines of on the court, which we both talk about a lot on our other platforms, and off the court, which I think there's a lot, and this is why we're diving in a bunch of stories that don't get talked about, or you hear it for a day and then it's gone.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be. Yeah. So I'm really excited to blur those lines off the court and on the court. I think that's important too.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. I'm excited to get into it. I definitely think I think we both agreed, coming into this, that we wanted to make sure that the stories that aren't being told get a little bit more action. Because you get lost in the barbershop debate stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. How many Jordan versus LeBron debates can we do?
Yeah, and then we just word it a little bit differently, or it's a lot of comparison and stuff like that. But sports is like everyday news as well. There's things that are happening every day, trades, moves, stuff like that. So I think the first thing that you and I both have been very passionate about talking about before, even before we even got to this point, was the situation with Brittany Griner. For those who don't know, Brittany Griner is a WNBA player, probably the greatest center to ever come into the WNBA. She was stopped in Russia on the way to go play. She has obviously overseas obligations there. She was stopped at an airport, ironically enough, maybe a day or two before the war in Ukraine started. She was being held and she's being detained for pretty much e-cigarettes. Some say they have a sheesh or weed oils, stuff like that. Yeah. But essentially e-cigarettes, like a puff bar, things of that nature. So she's been detained. She's been down for almost 2 months now.
I think it's closer to 3.
Closer to 3. She just got extended. Her detainment just got extended, I want to say, to 30 more days. The U.S. finally declared it an unlawful detaining. So obviously she has a trial to get her back home. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Floyd.
I'm so disappointed, might be an understatement. Disgusted might be an overstatement. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle, but it's closer to disgusted with the way this has been handled. Yeah. The fact that the Russian government is treating this like she had enough and it was distribution. She's facing 10 years in a Russian jail for, okay, look, she may or may not. One, she may or may not had it. We don't know. Like I don't know how much you or I trust the Russian police to say, oh yeah, she definitely had that with her. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why, but let's do that and say that she had some. She had some for personal consumption. Now, whether that's legal in Russia or not, I don't know. I'm sure it's legal in other places. Like I know that it's legal in other places. But let me add, I always look at it this way. It's Brittany Griner. It's not, and it wasn't a big news story. Just think about it. It popped up for a day and then it was gone. 3 months she's been there. One of the greatest WNBA players ever. If that was LeBron James, would we just be sweeping it under the rug? If it was, I don't know, Bryce Harper, I'm trying to think of other sports. If it was Bryce Harper, no. If it was Sidney Crosby, that's a hockey player for those that don't know. We're not doing this. We're making a big deal about this. Right? If it was Tom Brady, if it was Lamar Jackson, like if it was any of these, and look, I don't want to make this male female, but if it was one of those superstars that we know in male sports, we're not 3 months. Do you think we're sitting back and going, keep Tom Brady? No, it's all good. Yeah. We're not. I think because it's Brittany Griner, and look, she checks all the boxes of what Russia historically government police don't like, right? She's black, she's lesbian, she has drugs on her. Like that's 3 strikes in Russia historically. They want to say it's changing, it's becoming more, open, whatever. Historically, those are 3 strikes. That's why she's being detained. And the fact that we're not making a big deal about this, and we're not like, it's not on CNN, it's not on ESPN every night, right? Like if it was, again, any of those athletes I mentioned before, it would be, day 92 of Tom Brady being held behind the red curtain. Seriously. It'd be like a huge story. It's Brittany Griner. Like it's just, it's her wife. It's her wife going, hey, let's not forget about this, right? 10 years. This ain't like, you think American jails are bad. This ain't an American. This is Russia.
Yeah. I think the most frustrating part about this, I think you hit it on the head, is just like, I don't know how like major, and I could even say like, forget about CNN. I think the major sports networks like ESPN, FS1, I think the fact that this isn't something that is on a daily basis being talked about, I think is the most concerning. Because I think you said it best. If Tom Brady or LeBron James, Stephen Curry were in this situation, I mean, the headline, we will be tracking this thing day by day. We'll be tracking this until the moment that one of those players was brought back. And like I think you said it best too about the day.
There'll be a SEAL team. Yeah, there'll be a SEAL team in there getting them out.
There'll be a counter. There'll be a consistent counter. It's been 30 days. It's been 45 days. It's been 60 days. And, it was kind of heartbreaking to see her wife, Sherelle, on Good Morning America having to like, please. She was
begging
pleading
to get her.
She was pleading with Joe Biden, like, please, can you bring the love of my life back home? And it's sad that we're at the point where this and this is clearly political at the same time, because what they're trying to like trade her for? They're trying to trade her for an arms dealer. They're trying
that's why I even question if it's legit.
Exactly.
It's they feel. Listen, I'll give Russia credit for this. They look at their athletes, male or female, as I think more equal than we do, right? Because most of their athletes are Olympic athletes. Some of them go and play professionally in other leagues. But if you think back to like the Olympics, it's that they don't care who gets the gold medal.
Right.
And so I guarantee you, part of this was, this is a big star in the U.S. Let's hold her, not realizing as they're showing, we don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. It's like, we just don't give a damn. So, you want arms deal? Yeah, keep her. I don't care. And that's, and for those that are like, what are these two guys doing? Like, Brittany. Listen, if it was your wife, your sister, your mother, your brother, your whatever, put that into perspective. Yeah. How would you feel if your mom, your wife, your whatever, the person you care about the most was being held there for suspect reasons, and no one was doing anything about it?
Yeah.
If that doesn't put it into perspective, then hey, listen, then you got to look yourself in the mirror and deal with whatever you're dealing with. But it blows my mind that we're not only that we're not doing anything. I get it. There's a political thing here. There's war. I get that side of it. The fact that no one's talking about it, I pains me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say shout out to the WNBA, and I'll always shout out the WNBA because the WNBA has been ahead of the game in terms of them talking about social issues way before George Floyd. Because I will say, as somebody who has witnessed all of these, crimes against Black people in the United States, it took a while before like other leagues to really get on board. You know what I'm saying? Like the WNBA been doing this since Trayvon Martin. They've been very on top of the social justice, social reform, the inclusion. And obviously now they're dedicating the season to BG in terms of bringing her home. And I will say I love what they're doing, but it's almost like it looks almost like a memorial. Like, they're putting her like almost as if like she's like
in memory of.
And she's not gone. Like she's still overseas in these terrible conditions, making it day by day. And shout out to her for obviously being in good spirits. I know people and around her have been able to communicate with her through via email and be able to, send her well wishes and that we are rooting for her to come home. But at the same time, it's like we should not be mourning her. We need to be making sure we're doing everything in our power to bring her back here. And ultimately, it is frustrating because I think there needs to be a segment every day on every major sports platform that does recognize her in some form. Whether that means you need to put, hey, if you got to put a BG42 on the desk of the set, go for it. But there needs to be some idea that the consumer that is watching this content or watching this massive brand has the opportunity to know that there is the one of the most famous WNBA players of all time is in a jail cell over an e-cigarette. Ultimately, to put it in the simplest terms.
I asked around. There's people who thought she was out already. They thought she was back because you don't hear, like, listen, ESPN or anyone who's watching ESPN, right here in the corner, you should have BG day, whatever, and a picture, right? And you should comment on it, but at the same time, let people know this is still going on. And again, I know people are going to trivialize it because they're like, oh, it's WNBA. I don't watch the WNBA. Blah, blah. Like, listen, WNBA, you said it, are ahead of the curve on social issues. Why? Well, because that's what moms do. That's what sisters do. They're always the one that keep us straight, right? They're the ones that raise us and teach us and whatever. And so I'm not surprised that they're ahead of the curve. So let's be there for them, right? Like our moms and sisters and wives and everything have been for us. It's time for us to return that.
Yeah. I think ultimately this is one of those situations where there just needs to be like more public say so. Like there needs to be more people just completely just speaking about it ultimately. That's why I think it's just simple enough. Like there's not enough tweets. Because I think when we look at things in history, even prior to social media, the only way anything's ever changed in society is because the people kind of uprose and decided like, we need to make a difference.
Now it's tweets, but it used to be, I'm going to write a letter.
Yeah, I'm writing a letter.
And then they would get a bunch of letters and they'd be like, oh, we better do something, right?
Yeah, and that's the secretary got too many letters to read, so you need to fix this because I can't sort through this mail. Yeah, or, petitions. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so many things that can be done, and it's just like, and I'm not going to get too political on where I stand in my, political views and things like that, but I will say like Joe Biden, I think he just he kind of dropped the ball on this. I think he should have been very aware, like they are using this woman not because she did something wrong, but because of who she is. I'm going to put something in a simple perspective. Brittany Griner has been going to Russia, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years now, maybe more. She's been playing overseas her whole career. This probably was not the first time that she's bought an e-cigarette across, you know what I'm saying? So if it was the 1, 2, a few, you can throw those things out, can't bring them on the plane. Like that is like basic 101. Like that's not means of, because they're trying to say she was trying to sell this stuff to. Yeah,
there's no way she had that much. Like, come on.
Way. Yeah, like that's why it doesn't make sense because it's an exact. There's just no way anybody is putting themselves at risk for this amount. So it's very clear that there was no intent to distribute. I also do, if you see the original video, BG clearly has like a Black Lives Matter sweater on walking in the day she gets pulled into custody. And I think you said it best about the 3 strikes. She was very loud and proud about who she is, which anybody I feel like should be, but they used that against her.
Well, that's the thing that we forget, right? It's I don't want to say it's accepted because it's not really accepted here, but it's more accepted in North America.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, there are still some places that are 50 years behind. And for all the issues you think in America, Canada, North America, there's some places that are still dealing with the life like it's the 60s here. Yeah. And that's, you want to be loud and proud, and you can be. Unfortunately, there's places where that gets you in trouble.
Yeah, and unfortunately too is, I think this also shows how, we as a society in North America still have some progress to be made, because we still live in this region where, hey, we have people who go into supermarkets and kill people that just look like me just because, out of hate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Just out of pure hate. We still clearly I don't think we respect women's rights to do what they please with their bodies. Still don't respect that part. We still have some of these, like, I don't want to say, obviously some can say, we've progressed since like slavery and civil rights and
look,
women's
suffrage. There has been progression.
Yeah.
Some things have gotten better, but some things haven't, and there's still a ways to go, but also some things have gotten worse. Yeah. And I'm trying to think who it was that said it. I'm hoping I don't misquote. It might have been like Chris Rock or something, or I don't know, who was kind of like, the one thing about back then, like talking about slavery and stuff, the racism was open. You knew what you were dealing with, and you had to deal with it. Now there obviously been progression, but now it's like the ones that still feel that way, well, now they're just quiet and they're doing in the back, behind your back, and it's not open. Well, now you don't know who you're dealing with, right? So, you mentioned, and I'm not putting this together with what I'm about to say, just pause, new paragraph. You said Biden has dropped a ton of balls. Yeah, and this just happens to be one of them. So I won't blur the lines on my political view. I think Biden's done a horrible job. And specifically on this, I listen now. Is there something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about? I hope Maybe. But I doubt it. I feel like we look at this the same way that the general public looks at the WNBA. It's not mainstream. Yeah. It's not for everybody. So I'm not going to give it the attention that it deserves. Yeah. Right. And I go back, and if it was an NBA player, we would be giving this more attention. Yeah, no, it's as simple as that. I'm gonna straight up say it. Free BG. Simple as that. And ultimately, I just it's disappointing. Like, this thing has like really been frustrating for me to watch, because I personally know BG. We have a personal relationship, so it's like my friend that I have to legitimately watch go through this. And this is like one of those, this is like one of the most helpless feelings, because I there's so many powers above me that, like, the only thing that I know that works is what we're doing right now. Making sure these things are vocalized, making sure there's a platform in which these things are being talked about. Because if they're not, you said it best, they're viewing this the same way some people view the WNBA. It's not mainstream. The only people who know about the WNBA are like mostly people who are legitimate sports fans. Literally or have someone like a family or close friend that are either into it or play in the look, and I'll be honest, did I pay attention to the WNBA? I'm going to be very honest. Before Kobe said, "Oh, this is actually really good basketball," no, I didn't. Right. And then Kobe was like, "This is actually really good basketball." I said, "Really? Let me look." Oh, you know what? No, it's different. I can't compare it to the NBA. It's not the same. But if you appreciate it for what it is, actually, you know what? It's actually really good basketball. And now I enjoy it. Now I also have a daughter, and she enjoys, and we enjoy watching it together. So there's all those things that came about of it. But even if I didn't watch the WNBA, I'm still saying hashtag free BG, because I look at it. What if it was my daughter? What if it was my wife? What if it was my
we just
mom? What it was,
Yeah.
what if it was somebody? I wouldn't just sit back and be like, they'll get her out when it's time.
Yeah.
No, I've been making a big noise about it.
You're speaking from the position of just being a normal human. Like, this is just human. Like, this is just human. It's just pure humanity. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, before we move on, I think we both agree, free BG, this topic can't be something that does not see enough attention from public eyes. And, we're just waiting to that day that we find out this year when she comes home.
You know what? She's a friend of yours. I don't mean to cut you off, but she's a friend of yours. So I make you this promise. From now until she is free, at the end of every one of my TikToks, instead of saying now you're more fluent, I'm gonna change it to free BG, and every Twitter is gonna be hashtag free BG because listen, that's all I can do. Yeah. And then if there's ever I can do more, I'll do more. But that's what I'm gonna start with.
No, for sure. I gotta pay my respects. I pulled up to the show today with the BG.
There we go.
Respects to the homie. Till she gets back. So moving on. So there's been a lot of conversation lately with NIL. And I think we're obviously going to dive into Nick Saban versus Deion Sanders, kind of versus Jimbo Fisher too.
Yeah.
Before we tap into that though, let me ask you this. From somebody who's watched college football a lot longer than I have, even before I've even got the chance to play in it, what do you think of NIL? Like, do you think this was long overdue, or were you on that side of you don't think collegiate athletes should be being able to make any money?
Oh, okay. I believe collegiate athletes should get paid. Mm-hmm. One, because I was a collegiate athlete and it would have been great to get paid. Mm-hmm. Two, because when they made these rules, I think people forget. I want to say the NCAA, and someone will correct me, I'm sure, in the chat or somewhere. I think it was like 1920 that this was kind of established and they started to make these rules. Right. Well, in the 1920s, there was no money. Coaches weren't getting paid. Schools weren't making money. There wasn't ticket sales. This wasn't a billion-dollar industry. So the rules of 1920 can't apply in 2020 because now it's a billion-dollar industry. Schools make I'm going to keep using the B word, billions of dollars.
No, you're right.
Coaches are getting paid tens of millions of dollars to coach them. Everybody seems to be making their money. Yep. Nike, the Jordan brand, who right now are doing the jerseys and the all that kind of stuff. The shoe companies, the Spalding, Wilson, whoever supplies the ball. Everybody's making money,
right? Except
for the kid. And before anyone says they're getting an education, even at its most, what? And I'll ask you because you've been in university more recently than me. What would a 4-year degree cost you?
Maybe $200,000.
200. That's a drop in the bucket for how much money they're making off these players. And so for me, I've always been like, look, I get the, to pay a player like a contract to come play for my school, that blurs the lines between professional and collegiate. I get that, amateur and collegiate.
Yeah.
Now, let's be clear. In Europe, right? They, especially basketball, they're playing, they're getting paid at 14, 15, 16 years old.
16, yeah.
But here's the thing. If someone who's on a billiard, I don't even know that I didn't even realize this was a thing, on a billiard scholarship, on a music scholarship, on an academic scholarship, all of those people are on scholarship, can go and make money.
Yep.
Right. I am on a music scholarship. I can go play on Sundays out in the street, at a venue, whatever, and get paid to do that.
Right.
But a basketball player can't go play basketball and get paid to do that on weekends to make money. So that's why I've always been against that sort of thing. My problem with NIL is that because the NCAA was so against any of this happening, that they lost all control. And now it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous because, yes, I believe they should get paid, but now there's almost no regulation. So I can sign a deal for $1 million. I'll go play at the University of Michigan. Now I don't necessarily like that. I'm a transfer to the University of Miami, make $2 million. Like and this isn't a bad thing. Oh, you know what? If I'm making $2 million a year or $1 million a year or $500,000 a year, I'm just going to stay in college, which I think is not a bad thing. But it's so. Here's the other part. What were we concerned with collegiate athletes going pro? What was the big knock? You couldn't hire an agent. Couldn't. Well, now with NIL,
test waters
now no, but now what's happening? High school,
in high school.
Hey, you know what? I can get you an NIL deal to this school. I can get you $1 million, but I got to be your NIL agent. And then guess what happens? Look, let's be honest. A lot of the kids going to that are great athletes don't always grow up in the best neighborhoods. So now there's some people who are a little, less than scrupulous, let's say, who are now in here saying, hey, well, if you don't make me part of your whatever, we're going to have problems. So it's opened up the door for all these problems. And so I always had this idea, it's too late now with NIL, but I always had this idea, like, let's pay them like a living wage. Like I don't feel like you should be made a millionaire right initially when you're playing college ball. But I feel like, if you want to buy a car, you should have, and you're the number one, player in the NCAA, you should be able to afford to buy a car. You should be able, like, coach should be able to buy me a pizza. Like, just think about how ridiculous that was. Coach couldn't, we were doing 3-a-days, and at the end of the day, I had no more money on my food card. Did you guys have swipe? The swipe card? Yeah. I didn't have any, and coach bought me pizza. Oh, NCAA rules violation. Yeah. Come on. Like, that was so petty and dumb, right?
Yeah.
So I was always kind of the belief that they should get paid, like, almost the way that I felt was everybody should just everyone on scholarship gets paid a base salary. And then if you go pro, you're getting your payday, like first round. You go pro, then the rest of the money, like there's actually a bank that goes into creating a scholarship for someone else.
Right.
For someone who's less fortunate, who can't make it, pay it forward sort of thing. Be like, hey, I'm going to make my money now. Here's a fund that was already saved up and ready to bring another person who couldn't afford it into college and give them a shot. Right. For those that didn't make it to pro, and let's be honest, 1%, people don't realize 1% of the players actually make it pro. So for the other 99%, you've made us billions. We paid for your school. We gave you, I don't know, $500,000 over 4 years. I'm just throwing out a number.
Yeah.
And now here's a trust. It's $100,000 a year for the next 3 years while you take your degree that you've earned, right? And put it into practice. So thank you for everything you've done. Now let's not throw you out into the world with nothing. Right. So that was always kind of my plan. It was like, make it kind of this gradual, like, here's the bucket of money each player is going to get based on, I don't know, jersey sales. I don't know what the factors are going to be, and then just chop it up so that it kind of grows with them. Because I started university at 17, just turned 18 years old. I didn't know anything about money. No one taught me anything about money. You give me $1 million, it's gone. The second I get it, I'm telling you, it's gone. Heck, I was like that till I was 30. So like, shame on me. But that's what I'm just saying. So that's why I was always like, I felt like there needs to be courses, there needs to be financial planning, there needs to be like a gradual kind of way to do this. And now they should get paid. I just feel like it's too open now. Maybe
I think I see that point, and I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think my pushback is as a player who's dealt with like coaches just flat out leaving at a blink of an eye, no real explanation, just going off and getting paid to do another thing. And then for me, when I was in school, when I transferred from UConn to Tennessee State, I still wanted to play at a 1A level, not a 1AA level. But because of our rules and stuff like that, I would have to sit out a year. But my coach can go and leave and go work at Michigan, and the same rules don't apply.
He could skip your bowl game and then go to another school. Yeah.
Right. And ironically enough is like, I will say this, like it would be ignorant of me to be as like a football player. You can say what you want about UConn and our record and how much money and, how many games, wins, losses. But financially, I know we make more money than the track team. I know we're making more money than lacrosse. I know we make more money than hockey, baseball, and we can still win only 2 games for a season. I know we're bringing in a lot of money for all these other programs. So say what you want. But, when those kids or those parents are like, oh, you get this scholarship with food, da, da, da. Yeah, but also, because we got this contract with ABC, we're the reason why, the band has new instruments this year.
Right.
Right. So I do think ultimately, people may say we're not workers for the university, but we are.
No, you are. You're like
you're an employee,
especially the big like the basketball and football. You're funding every other sport. You're funding female sport as you should.
Yeah,
as you should.
Right,
but there needs to be some. Yeah, there needs to be some kickback. Absolutely.
And so, and I even think about this, and for me thinking about football as a job for me, my DB coach, the first corners coach I had at college, he used to go like this. Look at my hands when I do this. He used to go school first, football second. So for those who are going to be listening to this, when I said football first, I put the number 2 up. I mean, when I put school first, I put the number 2 up. And then when I said football second, I put the number 1 up. Because that's really what it is. Football comes first. Then your academic career. And some schools say, oh, we have these resources, but they don't want to hear you say you got to miss a meeting because you got to study for an exam.
Yeah. Listen, I don't want to, I'm not going to call out anybody, but like I know a player playing basketball who had a makeup exam on game day.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys had this. We had mandatory study hall with like a tutor, all the athletes and it was kind of generally accepted that, well, let that person do the exam. Yeah. You got to play.
Yeah.
So tell me where the priorities are. Right. And that's,
Listen,
and at the time, right, you're 18, 19 years old. You're like, this is great. All I want to do is play ball anyways. All I want to do is,
But the thing is, my reason why I kind of like the NIL thing is because, yes, I know you can look at this as like being a millionaire, right? Like I can get like there's Bijan Robinson, running back for the University of Texas, who will probably be a first-round draft pick in this upcoming draft. He signed a deal with Lamborghini. He's like 20 years old. That's pretty awesome. He's going to make a lot of money before he gets to the NFL. However, I also look at the contrast of NIL in the sense of, I don't know if you ever heard of Destroying. Destroying that's his YouTube name. He was a kicker for the University of Central Florida. And he had to choose between his YouTube channel and his life as a kicker. Obviously, he chose YouTube, or I wouldn't be telling the story. He chose YouTube. Obviously, he's one of the biggest content creators in the sports, in the football space, in the video game space. He just signed to FaZe Clan. He's made millions of dollars in his content creation space, but he had to pick between the love for the game and this. And I know a lot of people think about, these kids are too young to be making 6-7 figures, but I also look at it in the sense of this gives a lot of other kids a chance to tap into something that they didn't know post sports, because like you just said, 1% of athletes are going pro. So I think NIL is like opportunity for these kids to find new ways to navigate themselves. Like some of these sponsorships may become jobs.
Yeah. Well, can I kill you with some stats for a sec?
Go for it.
Especially football. So 1% of collegiate athletes make it to the NFL or NBA, whatever. The average lifespan of an NFL player, 3 years. 3 years. 71% of them bankrupt 3 years after retirement.
Yep.
So when people say, "Oh, I make millions of dollars," you know what? It doesn't seem to be working. Yeah. What's happening now doesn't, like, is it 1%? They only last for 3 years on average. There's exceptions, but on average, 3 years, and then they're bankrupt. 71% of them are bankrupt. Yeah. So now you're starting nowhere. So when you said about, the school first, football second, but guess what? When the football's done, now what?
Right.
Because I made school first.
Right.
I keep throwing up the 2 for those that listening on the podcast. And that's, now you look back and go, I wish I would have.
Right.
I wish I would have.
Right. And that's why it's hard for me to like really have too many. And I think too, because I'm kind of like, I'm only maybe like 3-4 years removed from playing college sports. So I would say about 4 years now removed from playing college sports. So I think for me, I could look back and think about all these other opportunities I probably would have had due to NIL, speaking engagements, opportunities to, connect and link up with different people. I think, thinking about that, I wish I would have had that resource. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't make a YouTube channel. I couldn't monetize a podcast when I was in school. I couldn't do these type of things. And I think that's where the misconception about this thing is like all these kids everybody's making six figures. Everybody's not making six figures, but I think the thing about the NIL that is great is there's always an opportunity for every player to do something with themselves, and you don't have to be Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. You know, you can be John Robinson at UConn, and you can still make some money because you created a platform for yourself, or you're working at you're doing events at a local restaurant in the Storrs, Connecticut area, you know? So I think, and I do, like you said, some of these kids are not coming from great communities. You know, some of these kids can send their moms and their dads some money, you know, at least, all right, because let's be real, some of these kids' parents are struggling to keep the light bills on while their kid is at school.
Well, that's, you know, how many stories do you have to hear about, you know, Brandon Marshall, Chad Johnson, right? Saying like, yeah, there was like didn't have, you know, dad was a dealer, and you know, we struggled to have the lights on. Hey, you know what? I don't need $100,000. $50,000 makes a huge difference. Right? That has the lights on, that has the heat on, that puts food on the table. But again, this is why I always look at both sides, and I think the problem there is you're going to get guys that are right because gambling's now huge. I'm going to pay you an NIL deal, but if I need you to shave some points, if I need you to do so, that's the part that scares me too. That we don't talk about. And like a guy at your old school at TSU, the basketball player, Master P's son, Percy Miller's son. Percy Miller. No, I think Master P is Percy. No, anyways, maybe the son, whatever. I
don't know. I think his name is Quincy or Percy.
Yeah. Like he got let's be honest. Did he get a deal because of basketball skills or because who his dad is?
No, for sure. I mean, but Bronny is valued Bronny and Arch Manning are valued as the two they're still in high school, and they're the two highest valued NIL athletes going into college next year because, I mean, obviously LeBron James' son and the nephew of Eli and Peyton Manning. So
can I ask you a question? I know this is off topic, but I want to ask you this question. Arch Manning comes from the Manning clan. Bronny, obviously, LeBron's son. Should a scholarship be wasted? Let's stick with Bronny for a second. Should a scholarship be wasted on a kid whose dad is almost a billionaire versus a kid that comes from nothing?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying. Because I get the point, like you come from y'all can pay.
Like if I had $1 billion, I'd be like, you know what? I'll pay for the school, I'll pay the tuition, and like, who's a kid that is maybe not, maybe they're not as good as Bronny, obviously, but who might need a scholarship because they're coming from nothing. Let me donate that to that. I'm really torn with ultra rich. I'm not talking making, you know, $200,000 a year rich. I'm talking about ultra rich, like
generational wealth, like
generational wealth.
They'll be rich
taking scholarships 100,
200 years.
I get it. You've earned the scholarship. I understand all the reasons for it. It doesn't sit right with me.
I think my rebuttal to that is just like, you can't take that away from Arch and Bronny. Because, you know, they also work for that scholarship. And I know. That's why I'm torn. I think they need, like, for them personally, they earned that, like, on their mind. Because I look at it as like a double-edged sword. Like, Arch Manning and Bronny James, they both know that for the rest of their athletic career, they're going to be compared to their elders and their family. And unfortunately, Arch, your name is Arch Manning. You are named after your grandfather.
Yeah, you're 2 letters away from Archie, man.
Yeah, like we know who you are. You're clearly named after your grandfather. So your name is Arch Manning. And Bronny James, his name is really LeBron James Jr. So they both got stuck with the worst possible names they could have got because the spotlight on both of them is going to be immaculate. Prior to their name, it was already going to be big. But I mean, their names now, even that makes it a bit more. And I hear what you're saying. Their families have more than enough money where they can pay all 4 years worth of tuition right on the first payment.
Up front.
However, I'm not going to penalize them for that because ultimately my goal, you know, at the end of the day, my goal is to have children. I think I'll have a lot of money and a lot of success And I will probably be able to pay for my children's schooling up front and they could deal with it all. However, if my son or daughter earns a scholarship and I saw the work that they did to get it, and I'm not gonna think to myself, I can't, it would be hard for me to think to myself, I'll just pay for your school.
And would you create a scholarship in their name?
I would be more willing to do that.
Like what if Bronny James is going to go to UNC, and so I'm going to do the Bronny James scholarship fund for someone who's in a I don't know what it is, like what the situation is, but they can pick whatever the heck they want, and just maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I feel like there's so many deserving kids because university's getting so expensive, and I'm just like there's so many deserving kids that just because of circumstance, I still hear stories. I talk to a lot of people of I'm the first in my family. Like to have the grades to go.
I'm the first on my dad's side of my family. I am the first one to graduate from college.
There you go, right? Like how many stories do we have to hear about? I used to carry my books in a pizza box so that I didn't get beat up. Like that still happens. So I don't know. I'm just a giver. I feel like
you're coming from a place of pure empathy.
Yeah, 100%.
Pure empathy, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, Bronny James is a 4-star recruit.
Yeah,
Arch Manning is a 5-star recruit.
I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm just,
I would do this though. Like for example, like if my son or daughter wants to play basketball at UConn, I also went to UConn. Obviously, they'd be on scholarship, but I would be totally with maybe developing a scholarship fund for another kid. Because to me, you don't really necessarily have to be an athlete.
Maybe I'm not even saying an athlete. It could be be anything. It could be academic. It could be
right.
What's like the Walter Payton Award, like just a good Samaritan man scholarship or man of the year. Like I don't care what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
or you know what? Like listen, we're talking about women's sports. We know that they're underfunded. We saw that whole thing at the NCAA tournament, the guys' gym versus the girls' gym. That was
flat out ridiculous, though.
That was
because I'm gonna tell you my issue with that before we get back to Saban and Dion. My issue with that is the NCAA has money. Period. It ain't like you just on some basketball, you on some budget here, and here. You have billions of dollars, and you could have afforded to give those women way better resources.
Two dumbbells and a yoga mat
and a dumbbell set. Like, give me a break, because don't act like don't hit me with don't hit the American people, the public, like, oh, we didn't have enough in the budget for the women's side. Yes, you did.
Yes,
you have more than enough, because basketball is just basketball. You just have a basketball budget.
Actually, you have to have the same, because technically, if you go into the NCAA bylaws,
yes,
it says equal equipment for all men and women's sports, and it's and you're supposed to be non-for-profit.
Right. And there's no way that
I don't believe that
there's just no reason that players have to literally clown you on TikTok for you to get your shit together. Like, that don't even make no sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So that's ridiculous. But moving on. So Nick Saban, Dion, we talked a bit about this on Gridiron, but I've thought about this a lot, coming into today. And at first, I said on Gridiron that I felt that Saban was pouting a little bit.
Oh, gotcha.
But he was. I don't think that's the obvious answer. But I also feel like, you know what I wasn't doing? I was thinking too, like, with the right answer, like giving the right answer to what he was doing. But you know what else he was doing? He was sending a subliminal message to the University of Alabama as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think this was a read between the lines. Yes, I'm going to come at Jimbo. I'm going to say Dion gave $1 million to Travis Hunter. I'm going to say that, Jimbo has bought all these players while he has no one recruiting class. Yes, do I think Nick Saban pouted about coming in second this year after he's dominated the recruiting? Yeah, pouted about that. But I think he also was telling the University of Alabama, boosters and all, if y'all don't dish out some money, we are not going to be the powerhouse we think we are. These kids are not going to care about Alabama bringing them to the league if they can go to University of Texas and make 1.5 in a year. If I can make 1.5 at Texas or $2 million at USC, why would I come here and make $300K at Alabama? So ultimately, Nick Saban, yes, pouting, dry snitching on himself. At the same time, though, he's also talking to every booster, donor, colleague, faculty member. That look, if we gonna still be Roll Tide and be the perennial powerhouse in college football, we can't think like we gonna be doing everything all buttoned up. And also too, for Nick Saban to even think that he's been buttoned up his whole career in Alabama is ridiculous. His entire family moved out to Alabama from Hawaii. I'm not gonna go too deep and speculate too much, but
I think players have been getting paid since the beginning of forever.
Johnny Manziel went on, before you go, Johnny Manziel went on a podcast and literally talked about, I think it was Busting with the Boys, literally talking about how he went, when he was at his peak at Texas A&M, he went into a hotel for a fan or a donor and signed hundreds of things of memorabilia just to make $20K.
Yeah, 100%. So there's no doubt that has always been happening, and will continue to happen. Even with NIL deals, there's still going to be that stuff happening. And 100%, Nick Saban was talking to his boosters and saying, look, he doesn't know that Deion, whether he gave that top recruit $1 million, but he set the bar and he said, look, he's getting $1 million. That's the kind of money you're going to have to throw my way or to the players' way so that we can get these top recruiting classes if you want to stay on top. If you don't want to stay on top, no problem. He also set himself up because now if they start losing, because every great team will go through a losing stretch. Even Nick Saban will start to lose games. He's not going to be in the national championship. I said this on Gridiron. Every empire, Greek, Roman, Ottoman, Genghis Khan, all of them, they all failed. They all fell at one point. Well, Alabama's going to fall too. And now he set himself up for, well, I told you I needed $1 million. You didn't want to give it. Right. Or if he takes it, heaven forbid, I don't think he'll do this, but if he takes another job, well, yeah, you guys weren't giving me the money like these other guys, these NIL deals. And I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm not making it about this. I'm asking the question. Do you think any of it has to do with is it any of it racial?
I'm going to be real with you. I think a lot of these, I think the NCAA, not even really NCAA, like Power Five, I think they're very upset with the significant increase in HBCU attention.
That's where I was going.
And the irony in all of this is, do you know a lot of Hall of Famers in the NFL and the NFL Hall of Fame were HBCU grads? A lot of these guys were not going to Alabama and Ohio State. This happened obviously in history because there was a point in history where they weren't allowed. Yeah, they weren't allowed to go to those schools. Alabama. Yeah. Couldn't go to Notre Dame. Couldn't go to USC. So, foundationally, the HBCU was the breeding ground for the best,
listen, the greatest running back of all time, in my eyes, Walter Payton, went to an HBCU. The greatest wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, HBCU. One of, if not the greatest tight end of all time, Shannon Sharp, HBCU. One of the greatest defensive players of all time, Jekin Jones. Like, there is a laundry list of players that went to HBCUs. Now, again, some of that was at certain points in history, they just weren't allowed to go to these other schools. Right. And then they kind of went, oh, oops, we're missing out on the best talent. Yeah. We better open.
That's exactly what happened.
Let us be really good and open things up. It had nothing to do
with your heart.
With their heart or being good people or, let's end segregation. It was about winning. Of course. About winning. That's what, listen, baseball did not, Jackie Robinson did not get, break the color barrier because they just had a big heart. They were seeing players in the Negro leagues dominate, and they're like, we got to get some of those guys here. Players, yes. That's the only reason it happened, which is sad to say, but it's the harsh reality, right?
Yeah, the numbers were absurd. You're looking at the stat books, like, how is he not playing in the best league in the world? And ultimately, I do think people are also in the NCAA space, in the Power Five space. I think they're threatened by Deion. I think they're 100% damn threatened by Deion. I mean, Deion, and I think you said this best. At first, I said the pivotal moment we look back at history is going to be Travis Hunter deciding to go to Jackson State. But actually, the biggest moment was Deion deciding to coach. I think it was actually Deion going to Dion going to Jackson State, then Hugh Jackson and Eddie George going to Tennessee State and Grambling.
Yep.
Big names to sign up, bring media attention to these HBCU programs.
There's going to be more. There's going to be more.
Right. But I just think Travis Hunter just set it off because it'll be like that one of those defining moments because he's the number one player in the entire country.
Sure. Yeah.
And let's be real about Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter may only go to Jackson State for 2 years and spend his third year of college and go in the portal and go play at Florida State. But at the end of the day,
or he could completely put everything, tip it over onto its head, and he could play 2 years and enter the draft and be a very high first round pick. And then
out of an HBCU.
Oh, you can go to an HBCU and still get drafted high?
And he'll be the first HBCU. He'll be the first HBCU player going to first round since 19. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He's going to make history on that day. And so ultimately, I do think it's a bit racial. It's a bit racial because I don't think the Power Fives and the NCAA is ready for all the top talent in the country to go back to HBCUs.
I hate these conferences, by the way, just as a completely separate, maybe a conversation for another day. I hate the way it's broken up, that you can just be like, oh, let's create the Big 12, the SEC, the Pacific, hold on. The NCAA is supposed to be kind of overseeing all this stuff. Like, why are we having regional, D1, AA, and I think a lot like the Premier League in soccer in Europe, where it's like, okay, in the Northwest region, here's the 50 schools, whatever. Right. 15 of them are in Division 1A, 15 are in Division 1, 2A, 3A, Division 2, 1, 2, 3A, Division 3, whatever the breakdown is. Right. And then the winner of that division gets to move up to the next division and last place. Sorry, dude, you get relegated. And I think that's a more like geographical. Then you can make better TV deals. Right now, you can have the Northwest, NCAA television. Like, I would have done it so different and so much more organized. But
I think it's also,
I wasn't alive in 1920. Close, but not
I think
there.
It's also dependent on. I think it's also now dependent on your admission. Like how many, like Coastal Carolina, ever since they went 1A, they have had a major influx in applications and this is just in students. Students wanting to go to the school. I think North Dakota State, I don't know what they're waiting on. North Dakota State can go from 1AA to 1A. For those who don't know, North Dakota State is where Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, that's where they both play quarterback at. They're pretty much considered the greatest 1AA program of all time. I mean, they have like 10 national championships. I mean, they just don't get talked about because they're in the FCS.
Right.
FBS. But I promise you, if they went to the Pac-12 tomorrow, they'll be better than Arizona State. They'll be better than Arizona, probably better than Washington State. Maybe except some of the big teams at the top, they will run for their money, but they can compete right now. I think it's about the numbers of admission, how many people are coming to the school, how many people are applying. But to come back full circle about the whole Saban versus Dion thing is, I just ultimately feel like Dion, Jimbo, and Nick just pretty much showed that like people are not really happy. And I mean, Dabo Swinney was one of the first people to say before NIL really got as big, but when it was like first introduced, Dabo Swinney has straight up said, I am not a fan of this. I'm not a fan. But you know what this means though. Like a lot of people, Jimbo and Dion are like, listen, I don't care. Jimbo and Dion are two examples of two guys that realize what's going on right now. And they're not going to get lost in their older way of thinking or what traditional thoughts they may have had 10 to 20 years ago.
No, listen, I saw Dion on IG Live, literally recruiting players. I hope I'm not getting him in trouble. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but like people were coming onto his live and said, hey, one was like, I'm an offensive lineman. I'm, 6'3", 275, and I run a 4.7. He's like, great. We're doing this camp at this date. Come on down. You're right. Like that kid never would have probably had that opportunity. Right. Who knows? Maybe they go and they flop and it's no big deal. Or maybe Dion's like, oh, we just found a diamond in the rough, right?
This kid found me on IG Live and now he's on our team.
Yeah, like that never would have been the case that everyone's used to, you play well in high school, someone comes knock on your door, hey, I'm I'm Coach K. I'm here to talk to your son and your parents. And it's this old school recruiting. Why not recruit on IG Live? Why not put out TikToks? Why not, do whatever to get the best players to be recognized? Because this NIL has created a level playing field.
Let me ask you this question because you're older than me, right? So I definitely think
you don't have to keep bringing that up. But yes.
No, but this is why I'm asking. That matters in the context of this question is obviously when you were playing sports, you grew up in a different set of rules than when I grew up. You definitely were in the era where you got hurt, can you walk, spit on it, and go back out there. I'm coming up in an era where, guys will completely not play in their bowl game unless it's the national championship because they're not going to affect their stock. And so my thing now is, do you think that you can't survive as a coach in this era of football, basketball, if you're not willing to evolve with the time? Can you still be have traditional ideals in sports and be successful today?
You can still have traditional ideals, but you have to be flexible enough to kind of, yes, you have to evolve. You can't be the old school. Like I'll give you an example. High school. I'm a wide receiver. I go up for a catch. I get my legs taken out from under me. I land not completely on my head, but like on my forehead.
Right.
I get up and all I see is stars.
Right.
I don't know how long I was on the ground for. I don't know anything other than all I can see is stars, waves of light in my eyes. I find a way to make it to the sideline. I'm pretty sure someone kind of helped me off.
Right.
And coach comes up behind me, slaps me on the back of the helmet and be like, "Oh, got your bell rung a little bit, eh? Let me know when you're ready to go back in." And 2 plays later, I'm back in.
Back in again. And you clearly had a concussion.
Clearly, yeah. And I didn't even know what that was. I'll be honest, I had no idea what even a concussion was back then. Right. So can you still do that today? No. Now, here's the thing. There's a line, right? And this is why I say, you can still keep the traditional kind of, hey, be tough, right? Because you always hear guys of my generation and older be like, players are soft nowadays. Everything, I got a hangnail. I'm going to miss 3 weeks.
Right.
So there's still a level of toughness that I think in every sport is a good thing. But listen, you're not going to expect, players to play every single game, every single down, offense and defense, land on their head, have a concussion and just rub some dirt on it and go back in. So you have to understand that we've become a player first kind of almost every, we used to say,
it seems like now.
Yeah, we used to say, oh, he's a player's coach. Players really like him. Oh, he's a tough, hard-nosed coach. Well, now everybody has to be a player's coach and find a way to toughen, keep them tough while still, being a player first coach, if that makes sense.
I think the biggest thing is just like now players are just more aware of their careers now. That's what I really think more than anything. They're just more, it's no longer just this mindset, I'm going to go out there and just play. It's like, I need to play, I need to make this much money because I'm going to go into this business. I need to be able to take care of my family and I'm 401k and I want to have this business and I want to have these assets and I want to create this and I want to invest in this. My body
it used to be a superstar. That used to be just for superstars. Superstars would make a bunch of money and say, okay, after football, I got to figure out, am I going to go into media? Am I going to run a business? But let me, Spencer Dinwiddie is a great example. So Spencer Dinwiddie isn't a superstar. Like he's a nice player. Now he's on the Mavs. But back when he was on the Nets, I actually connected with Spencer Dinwiddie on LinkedIn because he was on there and he had like all these business ventures because he was already thinking like, hey, basketball's going to fund some of these things, but I need to get businesses going here, and here.
Have other connections. Right?
Brendan Marshall. It used to drive me nuts because I'm a Bears fan. We used it when he was with the Bears, where he would then fly to New York and do where he was like talk show, whatever. I forget which show it was, but one of those.
He was on Fox or he was on CBS.
CBS. And I'd be like, dude, like we're struggling. Get back in the lab, like we did, But he was smart. He's like, hey, I know that I'm focusing on that media career coming up. Yeah. Pat Beverly recently. Everyone says, oh, he was crazy talk. No, he's setting himself up to say, like, look, I'm not
over.
afraid to call out superstars.
Mm-hmm.
Put me on ESPN and I'll make a controversial
he's
show
that people
will watch
as an analyst. Because the thing is like, let's be real. Patrick Beverley is about to be on ESPN all throughout the summer. Until he has to go back, until Patrick Beverley has to go back and play basketball again, ESPN will be in New York City until his season.
And let's be honest, he's picking on 37, soon to be 38-year-old Chris Paul, so he's not really worried about him coming after him. Like, it's
right, yeah. So it's, I mean, no, but that's really what it is. I just think players now more than ever are just they're more strategic than they ever been because now education has changed, so they just know more.
Tom Brady started TB12 how long ago? And he hasn't even retired yet, and he's already signed his deal, $375 million. Like I give Michael Jordan a lot of credit for this. Mm-hmm. He really brought business of sports, like what you can do off the court, to the forefront, and players now are all thinking, hey, whether it's a social media career. I don't even care if real estate, you know, I know a coach who has like 10 or 12 car dealers in Texas. Like it's, hey, how can I use this name?
Tiger Woods.
They all, it's, you know, do you know that there's a generation of people who don't know. And I was reminded of this recently because he passed away, but who didn't know John Madden played football? Was one of the greatest coaches of football.
They know him from television and the video game.
No, they don't even know that he was a great announcer. Him and Pat Somerville for years. Mm-hmm. They know him as John Madden, the video game. The video game. That's it. Game. I'm like that's like probably the smallest piece of his career. Like
John Madden is like a part of football, like legitimately football, NFL, like history.
Yeah, you can't write the history of the NFL without John Madden because he pops up everywhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. So before we wrap up the show, because you know we're almost about that time, we actually have one more segment between two shots. This is probably the end of the pod where we try to contrast on something, but even maybe not even contrast. You may just agree, just coming from just two different viewpoints of it.
You know what we should do, if I may, because it's the first one. It's the first one. And I think let's set the tone. I think whatever the topic is, whether it's my opinion or your opinion, let's just take opposite sides. You make the case for one, I'll make the case for the other.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
let's make that as episode 1. We kind of set the guidelines for this. So don't give us hate mail. We're purposely taking opposites.
We are purposely.
Actually, send us hate mail. It's okay. Send us hate mail.
We're playing devil's advocate, but this may not be where we actually think about it. But we're trying to play the idea that there is a group of people that probably do feel this way about this. So the topic for today is we're going to talk about Josh Donaldson versus Tim Anderson. Obviously, Tim Anderson and Josh Donaldson are known for getting into it because there was a comment made against where Josh Donaldson had called Tim Anderson Jackie in terms of Jackie Robinson. It actually got so much that the entire Yankees crowd during the game was chanting Jackie during the game. I know some people tried to rebuttal what Tim Anderson felt about the comment because there was an article back in 2019 in Sports Illustrated when Tim Anderson kind of really like bursting onto the scene, one of the best shortstops in the game. Pretty much said that he was like the new age Jackie Robinson in baseball. But if you read the article, he says that in the sense of like one, where he's from, like his environment. He's probably he is up 7% of Black African players in Major League Baseball. Not only that, he's from the inner city, like he's from Chicago. And then 2, he said he's bringing like the fun, the flair, kind of like that swagger back to Major League Baseball. But in no point was he calling himself in the way he's played, what he's done in the game. Was he comparing himself to Jackie Robinson in that regard? Because what Jackie Robinson did for baseball was iconic. So he never wanted to put himself. Tim Anderson is very aware that he would not be in this space that he's in if it were not for Jackie Robinson. But ultimately, he used him as an example of why. And so Josh Donaldson, when the whole thing was going on in a press conference after the game, had said that, you know, that he's called himself that we've joked about this before, Tim Anderson rebuttal was, we've joked about it once, but I also told him, let's just stop doing that. So do I think before you dive into this, I'm gonna just say what I personally think of Josh Donaldson and where I stand on this. So I think it'd be easy for me to just go out on Twitter and say, oh, Josh Donaldson is a racist and da 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 da. But I don't know Josh Donaldson. I've not heard him speak before. I've not heard any interviews from him. And now, obviously, I'm going to probably tap back into this because this may be deeper later on. We may dive back into this at some point. But I don't know him enough. I'm very much one of those people, as a Black man in America who has definitely dealt with unconscious bias at times where I felt like I may have been in a situation where somebody has done something or said something or verbalized something to me because I was African-American male. But at the same time, I am very much, where do you stand? I want to see where you stand on something. I'm not going to just judge you based off what everything you say. I got to see where you stand, why you stand, where you stand. And then from that point, that's when, you can go and decide how you want to act accordingly and what this relationship is going to be like. However, at the same time, not calling Donaldson a racist, again, you cannot go on a press conference, in my personal opinion, and say, oh, well, we joked about this a few times and da 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 da. It shouldn't be a big deal to him because I've called him Jackie Robinson before. Speaking for myself, I know that I've been in a situation where I've joked with somebody was joking to me of opposite race, and I've said a Black joke that I've kind of just chuckled with them and laughed it off because I know that were they trying to mean harm by it? Probably not. But I personally probably did not like it. But I just joked it off and gave it and washed my hands of it and didn't comment on it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that might not be the case with Tim Anderson. Just because he may have laughed at you the first time he said it because he talked about it in the article, doesn't mean he wants to hear about it every time, because sometimes it's not easy to hear something that's kind of like has like a racial undertone from somebody that's not in your pool of people that look like you. And I think the best person I heard talk about it was Aaron Judge, actually. When they asked Aaron Judge about it, he even said he doesn't think it was a good idea by his own teammate. Said Josh is a professional, knows that he kind of messed up, issues an apology, and we have to move on from it, which is correct. But let's not sit here and act like people can't be offended by something you say. Like, if somebody interpreted something and it was offensive, they have to feel like if I come on here and say, and joke and say, Fluent, I think your headphones look stupid and that sweater is whack. Ultimately, you may laugh at me, but if we have a conversation after this, you say to me, J. Rob, stop talking about my clothing or my equipment. I don't really like it. You know what I'm saying? I will have to respect that, because you don't always know how something you say is affecting somebody else. And I think it's kind of stupid that we on social media here saying picking a side. We all hear picking sides like Tim Anderson is soft or Josh Donaldson is a racist. I think it's more so Josh Donaldson made a bad comment that had a racial undertone that Tim Anderson perpetuated that he did not personally like. He doesn't care about his 2019 article. He, in that moment, did not like that comment. And obviously, let's be real. What happened in 2020? Like, we had George Floyd, we had Breonna Taylor, we had all these people. Things changed over the last 3 years. Like, the last 2 years, even including right now in 2022, we have been set back. Again, I know Black Americans, I probably feel a little bit wary about their counterparts just because of the police brutalities, the Buffalo. There's legitimate hate crimes that go on. And I'm going to get a little bit political because there's hate crimes that go on in this country. And Black Americans have yet to get a hate crime bill passed. But in the same token, there was an Asian hate bill moved. There was one for the LGBTQ community. There was even one passed the moment that young man walked into that supermarket and killed all those Black people and wrote a manifesto about how he despised trans, gays, and Jews. They put out an anti-Semitic hate bill out in the United States of America, and Black folks still have not gotten one. So there is a legitimate frustration in the community in this country about a lot of things. You don't think that people in this community are on edge and don't always want to have to tiptoe around racial lines when somebody makes a comment that nobody wants to go through that all the time. So I just think it was irresponsible for Josh Donaldson to say that because he got too comfortable. That's one of those moments like, oh, I have black friends. I ain't racist. I have black friends. No, sometimes you just know black people. You know what I'm saying? So I think ultimately the comment was just irresponsible in the sense of for him to just automatically assume that Tim Anderson may not take offense to it. I mean, I think that was irresponsible on him. And if Tim Anderson wants to tell the world that he felt like the comment was racist, he can tell it. He can say that. You can't say how he felt about what somebody said about how he looks, because he wouldn't get called Jackie Robinson if he wasn't black.
So for those that know me, they know pretty much everything I'm about to say isn't how I feel, but I'm gonna take the other side of this. So part of this has to do with Josh Donaldson, because I do know Josh Donaldson. Josh played here in Toronto for a while for the Blue Jays. And the one thing I know about Josh Donaldson is he doesn't have a great reputation in Major League Baseball. He's a jerk. He's the kind of guy that makes bad jokes. And if I'm making the case for him, it's this. You came out and said in 2019, I'm the new Jackie Robinson. I'm going to bring fun back to baseball. Mm-hmm. Now, let me change the name for a second. What if he said, I'm the greatest baseball player. I'm the Michael Jordan of baseball. Mm-hmm. And then he went out and went 0 for 5. Right. And Josh Donaldson says, way to play, Mike. Way to play, Jordan. Way to play that. Is that racially inspired? No. And the answer is no, because he's comparing his game. So could Josh Donaldson have said, hey, he compared himself to Jackie Robinson bringing fun back, and then I saw him pouting, and I said, hey, why aren't you smiling, Jackie? Because you're Jackie Robinson. You're bringing fun back to the game. You don't look like you're having fun. You're sitting there pouting. And we joked about it, and he laughed. If Tim Anderson laughed at that and then didn't, because he can get a hold of Josh Donaldson anytime he wants. If he didn't later say, hey, you called me Jackie before, and I know it was in reference to the magazine, but just so you know, the way that the world is right now, man, I found that joke to be offside because this and this. Because that's the one thing we don't do enough. We don't have conversations. Yeah. We do have, whether it be black, white, Asian, laugh it off and then never say it. And then the other person thinks, oh, it's okay. I'll laugh it off. Yeah. I'll tell you a story in a minute because I want to stay on track. So if I'm making the case for that other side, it's, well, you called yourself that. Right. You didn't live up to that moniker. You weren't bringing fun back. I joked about it with you and you laughed. So the next time I see you, or fast forward a couple of years, you're not playing today. Because let's remember, Tim Anderson wasn't playing. He said, oh, I wasn't even playing. I was just going to mind my own business. Well, he sees Tim Anderson sitting there doing nothing. And he's like, that doesn't look like the fun Jackie Robinson that he promised he was going to bring the fun back. Hey, what's going on, Jackie? Why? Oh, well, now it's offensive. How would Josh Donaldson know it's offensive? Right. Because you said it, you put it out there. He did it. He joked with you once. You laughed. How is he going to know? I get it. The world has changed, but it hasn't changed for Josh Donaldson. Let's be honest. He's a millionaire white baseball player. For him, it hasn't changed. Right. Whether you want to use the term oblivious, ignorant, whatever, uninformed, it hasn't changed for him. He lives in I'm sure, a beautiful house in a great part of town where he's never had to deal with being pulled over for nothing, having a family member, an unarmed family member shot for no reason. He's never had to deal with that.
Yeah, of course.
How would he know unless his black friends, acquaintances, someone that he joked with who found it offensive the first doesn't say, hey man, that's not cool. Right. Here's why it's not cool. So if I'm making the case for Josh Donaldson, that would be the case that I would make is you put it out there. You compared yourself to Jackie Robinson about being fun. Well, you're not living up to that. Just like if he said, I'm the Michael Jordan of baseball, and you maybe not that's not a good comparison because we know how Michael Jordan did in baseball. But you know what I mean? No, like the basketball version of Jordan of baseball is like you're not that guy. Yeah. So that's my only concern there, right?
I will push back with this though. The issue is we were not physically there Do you know why I really think, and I give Tim Anderson a lot of the benefit of the doubt on this, not because I'm biased because he's a black man, but I think the tone. I think he was offended by the tone in which the statement was said to him. I think that's why he got into.
And that goes back to Josh is a jerk.
Yeah.
Right. So he probably said it in a jerky way.
Like,
which I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I think ultimately what it was is like, you can tell the difference between somebody saying, what are you looking at? And what are you looking at? We know the difference. You know what I'm saying? And so I think really where the whole presser came, that I am willing to say, I will say if there was a percentage, I'd give it about an 85% chance that Josh Donaldson went up to Tim Anderson and called him Jackie Robinson in that smug, like I'm above you tone. And that's why Tim and him got into it.
But do you feel like part of it, do you feel like he was trying to get under his skin a little bit? Probably. Because let's be honest, and I get it that it's racial and that's why it's a bigger deal, but like you had Kevin Garnett tell Carmelo Anthony that his wife tasted like Cheerios. And everybody thought, oh, that's really funny. He's such a good trash talker. He got under Carmelo's skin.
But they two men from the same area. They both from the hood. They both kind of grew up in the same thing. Like,
again, I'm playing devil's advocate. Yeah, Josh Donaldson sees him as an equal too. We're both great baseball players. I don't see color.
But that is an issue. But that is an issue though, because I'll be honest with you, Fluent. I would think it would be very irresponsible of you as my co-host if you didn't see color. You know
I'm not saying me. I'm saying Josh.
I know.
Let's be clear. Again, I'm doing this purposely on the
I know. But I'm just saying, like, I know you don't really feel this way. I'm saying this in terms of if this was any type of situation where somebody says, "Oh, I don't see," like if Josh Donaldson got up there and said, "I don't see color."
He's my equal. We're both great baseball players. We made a joke. It was just a joke.
It would be so irresponsible because let's be real. In sports, to say we don't see color in sports is so ignorant to me and so like irresponsible as a whole. Because
I think it's, if I'm now going back to myself, it's completely irresponsible in any walk of life to see that, because we all see it.
Color. Exactly.
It's how you treat it is different, but we all see it.
Like let's be real. Like we can even look at sports leagues in general. The two dominated sports by white people are the NHL and Major League Baseball. One sport where guys in helmets and shoulder pads and ice hockey and hockey sticks can fight each other for 10 minutes, fist fight each other, and just go sit in a box and then come back and play. In the NFL and the NBA, predominantly black leagues, if I got in my helmet and started punching on another player, I'm getting suspended. I'm getting fined. I'm going to probably have to go to anger management and do a whole bunch of evaluations and stuff. NBA is the same way. And Major League Baseball, how many times has Major League Baseball been about cheating, steroids, pine tar? Literally the color barrier. The foundation of two sports is completely different. And the one biggest difference between those two leagues and the two leagues I just mentioned is really the color breakdown. There's majority African-American players in the NFL, the NBA. There's majority white players in the NHL and in Major League Baseball. And the rules are different. Even in the way those guys are punished are different. It's way different. So for somebody to even say, oh, if Josh Donaldson went on TV and said, oh, I don't see color, or this is my boy, I have black friends, like, I would be like, give me a break, yo. Because you probably said that comment, especially probably a tone that is racially motivated, because you got to realize saying I'm the next Michael Jordan and saying I'm the next Jackie Robinson is way different, because Jackie Robinson played in Major League Baseball. He is literally a civil rights leader for what he did in his sport. It's like monumental to history. So ultimately, hey, if somebody was offended because you said something that they can take in a racial manner, if like that was a racially motivated comment, then all you need to do is apologize for it. Because ultimately, what do I look like if I said something that was anti-Semitic? just because I didn't feel like it was anti-Semitic doesn't mean that person who was listening, who was in the Jewish community, didn't feel that way. And I can't say, oh, you shouldn't feel like that because that's not what I meant. That don't even make no sense. That's like if you said the N-word in a rap song and I was just like, oh, because you're not directing it, I wouldn't like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that don't make sense. So, you know, I just think Josh needs to be a little bit more responsible. But like you just told me, I didn't know he was a jerk. I didn't know he's been in a lot of nonsense.
That's the rumor about him. Like he's he's made some dirty plays. He's not the nicest guy around in the locker room. There's great player, but just personality wise isn't the best. Listen, I don't know him personally either, so I don't know if that's true or not. But I'm just I knew we were talking about this, so I obviously looked up a little bit, did some research, and that's kind of the thing. And I guess when we say the full. So for those that are listening, he has since been suspended. He has apologized to Tim Anderson. He's actually even apologized to the wife of Jackie Robinson. Yeah. And I just, for him, now I'm going to be me again. I'm not going to take the other side. For him, I think he needs to be smarter than that. You need to know what's going on in the world.
Come on now.
And the other thing, but I will say this, I'm not going to, I'll give it 99% Josh at fault, 1% Tim. I think Tim should have initially, when he said, one, he shouldn't be comparing himself to Jackie Robinson anyways. True. So that was just a bad call, period. But also that first joke, squash it. Yeah. Tell him right away. Like if you say something to, I promised you a story. High school, played football, played basketball. Mm-hmm. I want to say the majority, but really not even the majority. Every single one of my friends is black. Right. Okay. And one of them, as we were out doing something, called me his favorite N-word. Mm-hmm. He said, "You're my favorite." And I was kind of like, hey, like, appreciate it that I'm accepted with y'all, but I don't feel comfortable with you calling me that, right? And he's like, all right, that's fair. I go, I would never say that to you. So, whatever. And people were like, what? And it gave me a weird feeling, right? Right. And I'm like, and he was like, cool. And never happened again. Right. But had I not said that, he might have said, hey, you're my favorite Greek N-word every single time. Right. And I'd kind of cringe every time and laugh it off because, he's my boy and we've known each other but again, I'm not letting Josh Donaldson off the hook here, but people aren't that smart. Yeah. People aren't that smart. They don't know what they don't know. Right. So, shame on him for not knowing. Mm-hmm. But also, let's teach him, right?
Yeah, that's what I feel too.
They're all teaching moments.
Yeah, something's got to be teachable.
You could get better. We can get better,
right? And it's the cancel culture though. That's where we live in, and that's the issue because and that's why I said before, like that's why I preface my point with I don't know Josh Donaldson. I do not think he's a racist because that'd be the issue too. Is that we live in a time where you say something that may blur some lines, no pun intended. And
now you're labeled that way forever.
And that's not fair. Like it's not fair sometimes because isn't everything about learning from your mistakes, education? And I think that's where we lack sometimes as a society as a whole is you can't make mistakes. And, like the fact that we don't have gun laws, that ain't a mistake. That's a choice. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's 100%. That's 100% a choice. And I was going to bring up, you talk about learning from your mistakes because I just heard this yesterday. Kevin Hart, right? Remember, I think he is the Oscars or the Emmys, right? He was supposed to host. Yeah. And they found some tweet from 10 years ago where he had said something about his son coming home being gay. And he was like, oh, no. And then he was like, well, no, and he deleted it. He apologized. And it's like, well, hold on. It was 10 years ago. I deleted it. I apologized. I learned. And now you're bringing it back up. Well, and you want me to apologize again. Right. Well, isn't the whole point if I do something wrong that if I'm a good person, I've learned I did something. People make mistakes every single day. So that part, let's stop with the everyone's perfect. No one's perfect. Right. So I make a mistake. I learn from it. I apologize. I evolve. I grow.
Right.
Don't throw it back in my face again 10 years later. Right. Like that's the whole point of, learning from your mistakes. Because let's be honest, if we all went back through our entire lives, and I'm older than you, which you've mentioned 10 times, right? If I go back through my life and I picked up every mistake, man, I might as well just dig a hole for myself and crawl into it because, but the one thing I tell everybody, I made a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
I learned so much more from my mistakes than I did my successes.
I agree.
That it made me better. So
I agree.
So again, shame to kind of wrap it up. Shame on Josh Donaldson for not understanding kind of what's going on in the world today, and to a much lesser extent, like shame on the rest of us for not telling him, hey, dude, like the first time, that was wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and I agree with that. because I've definitely been at fault where I've had to tell other people that were not Black, bro, it was funny the first time, but bro, I've had enough of that joke. You know what I'm saying? Like it was cool. But like you just said, that's my 1% because I should have just the first time a joke was made, nipped it in the bud right there.
And then listen, right to your point. If someone makes, again, harmless, hopefully it's harmless, like hopefully it's not malicious, and you'll know you know the difference. But if it's that first time where it's, I didn't know, and you say, hey, don't do that again, and they never do it again, hey, guess what, man? That was a great teaching moment, and now that person's better. Right. If they do it again, well, now you know that, okay, then now you're gonna tell me who you are. Right. You're gonna tell me who you are, and it's gonna be clear real fast.
Right. Well, before we wrap up the show, Fluent, I do think I said it on PC Gridiron, but I think I'm gonna say it one more time on our platform, just because we talk about real world stuff. Over the last 3 weeks, we actually experienced 3 shootings: one in a church, one in a supermarket, and one at an elementary school. I have to say, Columbine and Sandy Hook should have easily been the it should have been over then. That's when we should have known that this is the issue. Virginia Tech, shooting at Virginia Tech. This should have been all done years ago. But now we are here in 2022 and nothing has changed. There are families that are not going to see their loved ones. They're not going to see their children. I have a brother that is 10 years old. I've called him significantly in the last 48 hours because that could have easily been him. And I don't know how I could wake up the next morning with him just being gone because somebody decided to walk into school and take him away from me and my mom and my family. And with that being said, my heart, I know yours does as well. Like you have children yourself. My heart is extended to every family in this. I am not going to not be vocal about this on my platforms. I will easily talk about this because this broke my heart. And I think Steve Kerr, if you haven't got to listen to Steve Kerr talk about this, go listen to that presser he put out 2 days ago, because we are failing as a country. We are failing our citizens. We are failing certain communities in this country. And, it has to stop, and I think Beto O'Rourke walking in on the governor of Texas, right in a meeting, interrupting and saying, you are causing a problem. We have an issue. That's what it's going to take. You got to be loud and you got to be disruptive. I think one of the best things I ever heard was, when somebody don't want to listen to you, sometimes you got to just speak to them in a language that they don't understand. Like that's what it takes sometimes. It takes, cutting up paper and fudging up the system and being loud and abrasive. Breonna Turner, forward for the Phoenix Mercury, she said some beautiful things about, what needs to be said. And, they ended their presser right with that, because that's what sometimes some of this stuff is just bigger than sports. It's bigger than about the numbers. It's bigger than the stats and the championships. We have a legitimate, COVID is a healthcare issue, but mass shootings in the United States of America is a massive.
Do you know that gun violence in America has now overtaken car accidents?
Yeah.
In terms of losing children. It used to be the number one car accident. Gun violence is now taken over for car accidents.
Mass shootings. And
you know that I'm a stats guy, so I'm gonna give you some stats that are just, when I saw them, when I looked them up, when I confirmed them, were staggering.
Yeah.
So over 280 school shootings in America. Number two, the number two country in the world. Do you know how many they had school shootings?
I think it was. I think maybe like two.
Eight.
Like two,
It was eight.
eight.
It was eight, but it was 280 something to eight. That's number two.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't think there's a direct correlation with the next stat I'm going to give you, then there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Which is why, look, I'm not saying, let's be clear. I'm not saying take away everyone's guns. And I'm not, because I get it. The Second Amendment and no. But let's be clear. The Second Amendment was about muskets. Yes. It wasn't about AK-47. However, so 288, the next closest country is 8. Guns per 100. So to make it fair, because obviously bigger populations, so guns per 100 citizens. Do you know how many in the US? Guns per 100 people?
75, 70.
120. 120 per 100. Second place, 34.
Wow.
Second place is 34.
Wow. And we
4 times more. So tell me there's not a correlation with that. Yeah. The countries that have the strictest gun laws in the world, China, the UK, Canada,
Australia,
Japan, Australia. They have like two of them have Canada had 3 school shootings. China had 2. The other 3 countries that I just all had 0.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear people say, "Oh, we got to put guns in teachers' hands," I'm like, "Is that the answer? Is more?"
No, we should not.
I feel like, look, America is built on a certain foundation of stuff, but let's be clear. One, why are there amendments to the Constitution? Well, because we got something wrong or something need to be changed. That's why there's an amendment. That's what amendment means. Look it up. Mm-hmm. But also, I mentioned the NCAA, where the rules were made in 1920, and they're already prehistoric. Mm-hmm. Like they don't fit. Yeah. Well, this is from the 1700s, 1800s, whatever. I'm clearly not U.S. history buff, but it's from 1776, 1876, something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that there's some outdated laws that need some refreshing, right? And so it's time to say, hey, if you're a hunter, I get it. You want to hunt. That's cool. My brother's a huge hunter. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need an AK-47. He doesn't need an automatic weapon. Right. If that kid, look, I'm not saying that it still doesn't happen. He might come in and do a mass stabbing. Okay. But if that kid comes in with a gun, like a 6-shooter, if he comes in with a rifle, it's gonna be a lot easier to take him down while he's reloading than if he's just in there. That's the part that I'm just like, 18-year-olds aren't even allowed to drink, but you can get a gun without a background check.
Can't even rent a car. Can't even rent a
car. Can't have a drink of alcohol, but here have an automatic weapon. Right. And let me also add this, because you mentioned Columbine, and someone brought this up to my attention today too. What has changed since Columbine? And this is something we need to also address, because it's not just the gun laws. Mm-hmm. It's also an education piece, because social media has created, and I'm sorry, this is maybe the old guy in me, a bunch of entitled, spoiled, self-centered little shits that when someone says something mean to them, they get all offended and be like, screw that, I'm gonna go shoot them up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Dude, let's start that education piece and be like, hey, someone's gonna piss you off. That's not the answer.
The shooter in Texas, apparently they said he went into school and killed them kids because he got bullied about him being poor and stuff like that. I'm going to say this right now.
You know who else got bullied about being poor? Every single person.
Everybody else. Yeah, I'm about to say everybody else did too. I was just about to say that, like, to all my young people watching this and listening to this, I'm not saying you're going to shoot up your school, but I want you to understand that you are not justified for hurting somebody because they said some words to you. Okay? There's no reason for you to stab somebody. There's no reason for you to shoot somebody because you don't like what came out of their mouth. If it really hurts you that bad, go tell somebody that works in your school district. Tell your parents. Tell your guidance counselor. And I know you don't feel like you may have some help or something, but there are tools that somebody will help you. But ultimately, don't think getting a gun and shooting and killing people is going to make you some sort of justified hero or justify what you felt, because it don't. Nobody has no sympathy for you for doing that. There's no sympathy in that. And I agree with you, Fluent. I mean, hey, I guess I am in that Gen Z group, but I will 100% say I do think my generation is a bit hypersensitive.
And not everybody. Not everybody. Let me be clear. Not everybody.
No, not everybody.
But enough, right?
But I do think there's some hypersensitivity. I do think there's a lot of hypersensitivity. You know, I do feel like, you know, me and my friends picking on each other was constructive.
100%.
It was a constructive. It allowed me to be able to take punches. I'll give you an example. I had to deal with when I was 20 years old, I got a DUI. And I got like one of the stupider DUIs. Cause I got a DUI for not even being like legally drunk. I got a DUI for having alcohol in my system under the age of 21.
Okay.
But ultimately, when that headline went out on the internet, it didn't say all the technicalities and logistics.
Right.
It just said DUI.
Right.
I had to go on, I Googled my name on Twitter, and I had to hear with a bunch of UConn fans disrespect me and tell all the I'm a piece of shit, I'm this, that, and the third, I need to leave, I'm done, whatever. I did not look for the closest gun and start shooting down my classmates. You know, I had a bunch of strangers judging me for the type of person I am. A 20-year-old kid being judged about who I am, the type of person I am, my character. Not that I just made a mistake, but who I was as a character, as a person, as an individual, as a human.
And let's be honest, not one of them would have said it to your face.
Your face. And not one of them would have said it to my face.
And not one of them knows you as a person.
At all.
Not one of them cared about the reality of it. Right. And in most cases, why did they do it? Oh, because if I put someone else down, I'll feel better about myself. Right. Like every time I read a troll to this day, you know, talking crap about me, all I think about is, man, they must be having a really bad day. They must be having a really bad day that you've taken the time to come out and say something negative about me. You're clearly not feeling good about yourself. Right. So again, that's my mentality. Look, I know this is really cheesy what I'm about to say, but I grew up with, you know, sticks and stones might break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
But that's the truth.
And it's the truth. It is the truth. Like
my mom put me on to that. You know what I'm saying? Like she always said, let somebody put their hands on you. Don't let them words throw you off your game.
Yeah. I tell my kids, you know, to share a little bit, my kids, I have a boy, girl, 8-year-old twins. Mm-hmm. And, you know, of course, my son came home really upset one day and said, oh, you know, I had this friend and he said he didn't want to be my friend anymore because I did this. Mm-hmm. And I pulled him and my daughter and I was like, dude, who tells you your worth? Who creates your worth? Right. And they had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm like, it's you. It's not what it's not how other people see you. It's how you see yourself.
Yes.
And so, hey, maybe I was a good dad. Maybe I was a bad dad. I don't even know. But I feel like it was the right thing to say because you got to give them that confidence to be like, no matter what anybody else says. And I always tell my son and daughter, I don't care what anybody else says to you. Like you need, you know, you come talk to me and we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Now, if they put their hands on you, that's a whole nother story. That's why you take it. That's why you're taking martial arts.
Yeah.
Because
it's a whole different conversation.
But I mean, like the words don't mean anything.
Don't mean nothing.
Yeah. So.
And like
so it's I'm just, you know, and I have friends down in Texas right now in San Antonio, and they're doing what they can to help. And it's just, you don't know this, or maybe you do. When I flew back from Florida, I flew into Buffalo,
right,
and then drove to Toronto.
Yeah.
Do you know what day that was?
Was that the day? That was the day before.
It was the day of.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, I'm driving through Buffalo, like. And I'm one I'll stop at a grocery store and I'll grab some stuff
to bring back. Yeah.
And, you know, when you think of Buffalo, I don't know if you know this, depending on what part of the world depending on if you see like where I am, I see the commercials all the time, you know, Tops Friendly Market, come in today.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, like I got home and saw that and I was like, we were just there.
Yeah.
So it was not, that one, not that Texas in the school. Not that the school didn't hit home. That one did too, because I have young kids. But that one where I was like, I was right there.
Yeah.
That one really, really hit home.
No, seriously. So yeah, you know, we're about to close the episode. But you know, simplest terms, you know, our hearts go out to the families, and we have a problem. We have a legitimate public health problem in the United States. And you know, guys, please don't stop talking about this. Retweet everything. Sign every petition. You know, make sure that the world knows our governing bodies understand that we as a people are upset about this because kids should not be casualties. You should not, no parent should have to drop their kid off at school, or should not be able to go and buy some goddamn milk and eggs and worry about getting shot. Like, that should not be the case, you know?
Yeah.
So ultimately, our prayers go out to those families in Buffalo, from the church in Texas. Our prayers are with y'all, you know, our condolences.
Hey, can I add this too?
Go
One,
ahead.
no parent should ever have to bury their child.
Simple.
And two, my heart and prayers also go out to all the kids right now who feel like they've been bullied, that they've been like, and you feel that you need violence is like gonna make it go away. It's not. Go talk to someone, get some help, because as much as I want to give prayers and thoughts, and I do, to those that were lost, I want to do the same for the people that we might still be able to save.
If you're struggling, go get help. Because I'm gonna tell you one thing. You're not going to feel some sort of salvation from hurting others to find some sort of peace. It's gonna just ignite more of that rage inside of you. So go find some help, go speak, because you're not alone. And like we both said, them words don't mean nothing. They do not, them words are not gonna be the reason why you don't wake up in the morning. It won't be. So it don't matter. And a lot of these people that say all these bad things about you, there's probably no profile picture in their picture. Or it's a picture of something that don't even look like them. It's some JPEG that they got on Google. So if they can't even show their face to you and show you who they are, then that means them words cannot mean nothing at all. But with that being said, to wrap up the show, you can follow us on Instagram at blurredlines_show. Same on TikTok. I'll put all our handles. All our handles will be around us along with our personals. And catch us next week. Make sure you follow us, put our notifications on, ask us questions, throw us topics too. I think me and Fluent, I don't think either of us are afraid to take on any topic.
Anything.
So
Absolutely.
anything. Ask us anything, bring up anything. We will dive into it. And we want to say thank you for being here through this experience with us, because this project is going to be dope. Fluent, again, I know you said don't thank you, but I do thank you for being here, because this is going to be fun. And I'm really excited to work with you.
Thank you.
And with that being said, we will see y'all next episode.